Hi everyone, this is the Unit 6 Day 3 video on dividing polynomials. We are going to talk about both long division of polynomials as well as synthetic division. And dividing polynomials is another method that we can use to kind of help us solve our polynomials, aka find the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts, whatever we want to call them. And it's particularly helpful if we are not given a polynomial that's factorable to begin with. So long division we have to learn because it works on every polynomial. There are some polynomials that will not divide with synthetic division. So synthetic division is nice because it's much faster, but it only works with particular divisors. So long division works with everything, but it is what it sounds like. It's long. It is the exact same process that you did with long division of numbers in elementary school. You might have heard this little like mnemonic or memory device, does McDonald's sell burgers raw? It's a way to remember the steps of long division. Does stands for divide, McDonald's is multiply, sell is subtract, burgers is the bring down step, and raw is to repeat, or if you get to the end, it stands for remainder. So let's go through this process. If we're dividing this polynomial, 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 8x plus 15, we call this the dividend, by this divisor, x minus 3, the first step is divide, but we only divide the first term of our divisor into the first term of our dividend. So we're asking ourselves, what number times this term would give me this term? So that would be 2x squared. I multiply next, but in this case I multiply both terms. So I get 2x cubed minus 6x squared. The goal is to always get this first term to cancel out through subtraction, so you want them to match exactly. So once we've multiplied, then we subtract. These first terms should always cancel out. If they haven't, you haven't picked the right number here. Once we subtract this, make sure that you are subtracting both terms, the 2x cubed and the negative 6x squared. So this becomes minus negative 5x squared minus negative 6x squared. That's how we get the positive x squared here. Once we subtract, we bring down, and then we repeat the whole process again. So how many times does x go into x squared? Well, it goes in 1x times. And then we multiply, x times x gives us x squared, x times negative 3 gives us negative 3x, and then we subtract, and then we bring down our next term. We repeat that whole process, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and if we're lucky enough to get a remainder of 0, we're done. If we happen to get any sort of remainder here, what we're going to do with it in advanced math is write that number as a quotient. So we'll put that number over the divisor, and that will be our final quotient, that whole polynomial. Synthetic division is a shortcut way of dividing that we can use as long as our divisor is a linear binomial, so meaning it's a first degree binomial where the leading coefficient is 1, meaning we can't have a leading coefficient here. When we use synthetic division, we need to make sure that we don't include any variables. So we don't have our variable in our divisor anymore. And to make synthetic division easier, we take the opposite sign of this term so that we can add instead of having to subtract like we do with long division. With our dividend, we just take the coefficients, no variables whatsoever. And the process is almost exactly the same, but sort of opposite. We start with bring down, so we always bring down our first term, and then we multiply these, and we put our answer under the second term. And then we add down the column, and then we repeat the process. We multiply, we add down the column, we multiply, and then we add down the column. So I didn't notice this before, but there's a typo here. That should be a negative 15, which is how we get a remainder of 0 here. It should not be positive 15. 3 times negative 5 would be negative 15, as we all know. Anyway, so synthetic division is super fast. However, we can't use it on everything. Like I said, we can only use it when we divide by a binomial where the leading coefficient is 1 and the degree is 1. Okay, and then finally, the last thing I should point out is that the quotient for synthetic division is always going to be written in a very specific order so that we can translate it easily back into algebra. This first number here is always the remainder, and then the other numbers are the coefficients or the constant. The variables, when we tack them back on, will be 1 degree less than whatever our divisor was, or I'm sorry, our dividend was. So we divided by a 3rd degree, so our quotient is always going to be a 2nd degree. Or we could always just count up from the remainder. So after the remainder, your next term would be the constant, and then your 1st degree, and then your 2nd degree after that. So the final answer here, we wouldn't want to include this as the final answer. We'd want to translate it back and say 2x squared plus x minus 5. So we'll do more practice with that in class. Come to class with any questions that you have, and thanks for watching.